Hello and welcome to another audio analysis. In today's video, I'm going to be looking at the second single from the upcoming album So Much for Stardust by Fall Out Boy. This second track is called Heartbreak Feels So Good. The first track to be released from the album Love from the Other Side certainly was very impressive. I was very pleased with it. Lots of strong songwriting, and it took them back to an earlier sound, kind of back to that 2007 Infinity on High kind of style, and moving away from those electronic elements that really sort of caused them a lot of disruption on Mania. It really does feel like the band are coming back on track, so I'm really excited to see if they can keep the trend going with this next song. So let's take a look at exactly how it sounds. Fall Out Boy and playing pranks, why does that not surprise me?
There's a camera in here?
Oh yeah, man, you can record everything.
Alright, recording. Where's Joe?
Dude, you know Joe. Like,
It's still so strange seeing music videos without Joe in them.
Sorry, Rivers is okay with this? We know that?
Dude, it's practically his idea.
Wait, they gave Rivers Cuomo on this? Okay, there he is.
You guys coming or what?
Is he featuring on this track? Or?
You know what to do, right?
You're gonna jump out of a van and grab me or something?
That's it, man. Exactly that.
I am not really sure about this.
Dude, you wrote Africa. You're gonna be great.
Yeah, that's true.
Remember, we do have a show tonight. I really don't want to be late.
It's gonna be quick. Don't worry about it, bro.
Okay, so already we're seeing the return of possibly some electronic elements on this, going back to those electronic drums. I'm not sure if Rivers Cuomo is actually featuring in this. He is the frontman of Weezer. Odd that they've got him in the music video, but they are known for making a lot of cameos. So whether he'll actually make an entrance in the song, we're not too sure yet. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm quite surprised with using this electronic opening with the drums. I wasn't sure if they were going to kind of avoid that and continue with the rock style we saw on the first single.
No matter what they tell you, the future's up for grabs, and no matter what they sell you, is there a word for bad miracle? Nobody said the road was endless. Nobody said
oh my
the
God,
crime was friendless.
It's Fall Out Boy, and they're trying to kidnap Rivers Cuomo.
Fuck those guys.
I like we're going back into this melodic drum styling on the actual track, and we're seeing those rock guitars really start to come in. I like that they had that slight electronic intro actually. It was quite nice just to really ease you into the track, and I like that they've kind of dropped it in favour of that rockish element. I also quite like the idea of Bad Miracle. It's, again, straight away we've got contrast right at the start of the song, and given the track is called Heartbreak Feels So Good, it's almost like an oxymoron. You've got two opposites really clashing. Something that shouldn't normally feel great actually does, and the idea of a bad miracle. There should be a miracle is something that you see is very positive, so having the kind of juxtaposition on some of these wordings on the title as well, something going to be quite interesting to see how they play with that and develop it throughout the song. Okay, one thing I actually quite like that Patrick Stump did there, and it's something we didn't see on the first track, he's actually playing with his vocals a little bit different on this track for just some of the parts. Just then we saw him kind of really push the note out further and kind of vibrate his voice at the end of the note and kind of take it even higher than we would normally see. And this is something that Brennan Urie from Panic at the Disco does a lot. That's kind of his trademark style, and it's good to see Patrick really hitting those notes. He has really refined and matured his voice, and he's still able to hit some seriously strong notes, but definitely giving off a bit of a Panic at the Disco vibe on the vocal styling for this track. And those almost like harmonised vocals are actually quite interesting because they really fit and sit in well with the guitar and the drums and the pacing on them. It does give it this really nice upbeatness to it, to the track. Again, more oppositions, talking about heartbreak, the idea of breaking up and dancing it away. So definitely like the band are throwing lots more opposites together on another track, and it's something they seem to really enjoy playing with.
We said we'd never grow up. It's open season on Blue Moods. Light from a screen of messages on set.
I quite like this little transition they've got in the middle, going back to the much more laid back and the electronic elements on the softer parts of the track, and it is very subtle. It's not over the top like they were doing on Mania, so I'm glad to see that. It's almost like they've looked at the lessons and taken them away from that track and have really implemented it much better on this. I like the idea of the string of messages unsent, that idea that when you kind of break up with somebody there's no messages coming through on your phone. You could also look at it the opposite way with the idea of open season. Suddenly you've got a field of people that you can now move on to, so it could be a screen full of messages, or it could also be the idea of messages unsent. You've got that, you can take away from it what you want. It is a very open-ended lyric where you can have two different conclusions depending on which way you want to look at it.
It was an uphill battle, but they didn't know, we were gonna use the roads as a ramp to take off.
And I quite like that lyric as well, about using the ramp as an ability to take off. So most of the time you see a lot of references of metaphoric language around roads, the idea that they are endless, they lead to nowhere, but I like the idea they're using it as a ramp. It's not something that you often see in a lot of songs, kind of putting a little bit of a spin on a kind of metaphor that's commonly used, but putting a twist on it to make it a little bit different.
We could cry a lot, don't stop dancing, don't dare stop. We'll cry later or cry now, you know it's heartbreak. We could dance our tears away, emancipate ourselves. We'll cry later or cry now, but baby, heartbreak feels so good.
And I like you've got this really just blast of energy just when it gets into the chorus. It's really nice to see just towards the end when they just really raise the levels and just really bring up that massive burst of energy. It's the sort of song that you can imagine a live crowd would just hit that point and suddenly everyone's jumping up and down. It really does give you that feel-good burst, which is great to see. And I like that they're keeping these rock elements, but they've really added a nice upbeat swing to it. I must admit, with the first single on this album, it certainly looked a bit dark and dismal at times with some of the meanings behind it and the way they kind of built the song around Patrick Stump's lyrics, but this definitely, despite having that continued negative meaning, still has very positive vibes to it, which is great to see. So they had to throw the elevator music in there, they couldn't resist.
An uphill battle, but they didn't know we were gonna use the roads as a ramp to take off.
I like with that what they've just done there, so they've actually used the actual layered vocals as opposed to those electronic drum beats, just to mix it up a little bit, just whacking it over Patrick Stump's vocals, and it's really just a nice way of showing a little bit of transition, and I really do think they've learned on how it's better to use some of these elements from Mania. It feels like they've really found that little sweet spot, just to really make it subtle, not over the top, and you can see the difference. It just really does work much better as an element to throw into their music and shows a great evolution.
And we could cry a little, cry a lot. Don't stop dancing, don't dare stop. We'll cry later or cry now, you know it's heartbreak. We could dance our tears away, emancipate ourselves. We'll cry later or cry now, but baby, heartbreak feels good.
And you can see it again there, just really drawing these notes out, and it's definitely hitting a much higher tone than we have seen on some of their previous releases. Although he's showing this range again. I mean, Patrick Stump is known for it, but he's certainly just channeling those Brendan Urie style vocals, not going quite as high, but just really just drawing these notes out. It's not something that he tends to do quite as heavily.
What the hell? Where's everyone?
It's Joe.
Okay, so that was actually quite an interesting track really compared to what we did here on the first track from the album. So a couple of things I do want to touch on that I do really like. I feel like they've really kind of honed in the idea of these electronic elements, putting them to much better use than they have done on previous albums. This feels like the time when they just started making that transition and were using it much more subtle ways, and it really paid off them, and then they kind of took it too far and it became more and more of their identity up until the point where it became excessive. I like the slight channeling on the vocals, really nice to see them just kind of adopting a little bit of a smoother style, and this track definitely has a more melodic vibe to it than what we did see on the first track from the album. One thing I don't think is as strong as Love From The Other Side is definitely the actual lyrics themselves. They don't feel like they've got as much depth to them. It was some nice moments in there, the idea of these oxymorons, these ideas of these juxtapositions, of these opposites really clashing together. Heartbreak feels so good, and some of the other ideas that they did throw into there, the idea of dancing away tears and pain, so it was great to see that, but I just don't feel outside of that it really had too much going on lyrically. But I feel this was more a chance for them to show some maturity in the musical side, as opposed to what we did see on Love From The Other Side, which was definitely much more focused on Patrick Stump, and they kept the instruments minimalistic and really didn't do too much with them. So they flipped the coin effectively, and I'm actually quite impressed. It's definitely a very melodic track. You can see it's more of a pop-based influence I think they've gone with this. This is definitely a lot more, it has that singability to it. You can imagine yourself singing along to this in the car or on a walk or something like that. So definitely an impressive showing for the second track. I don't feel it's quite as strong as what we did see on Love From The Other Side, but I am just kind of drawn more towards the vocals as opposed to some of the music. But I like to see them expressing themselves and really trying something a little bit different, and it definitely has worked much better than what I was expecting to see if they were going to incorporate electronic elements again. So that will be everything for today's video. Please do let me know your thoughts about this track in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. Do you think it's as strong and lives up to the strength of Love From The Other Side? Do you think it's weaker? Where do you think this will sit on the album? And are you happy to see them really mastering and sort of maturing on those electronic uses and a couple of other things they've thrown into this track? I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to see more content like this, then please do feel free to subscribe, and I will see you in the next audio analysis.